Hey, everybody, Carm Capriato. Glad to be here as the host of the Coalition of Automotive Management Professionals, the CAMP Facebook group. We're on Facebook, but it's the coaches. We get three coaches on. Let me introduce them to you. By the way, it's automotiveprofessionals.org. There's the URL for the website of these great coaches that have gotten together and said, "Hey, let's." Not only do they have a meeting each and every month on their own to talk about business trends, opportunities, et cetera, what's going on in your neck of the woods, we always get together and do this little expert call. Bill Haas is with me from AIM Auto Ignite Management at
Good afternoon.
autoignitemanagement.com. Hey, Bill, good to see you. Vic Tarasic, shop owner coach at shopownercoach.com, and Brian Gillis, the chief UNET results strategist at unetresults.com. Hey, Brian, good to have you here. Listen, we were chatting in the green room before we got on about the next 6 months, and I know it's March, it's the end of Q1. I think it's a perfect time to think about where we're headed. And Vic, I know you've that's your passion right now with your clients.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't you kick it off for us, man? Let's look forward 6.
Well, you should always be looking way out. And when you're looking 6 months out, you don't want to pay attention to what's going on right in front of you. You want to be further out. And you've got a lot of noise on the news. You got people talking about, the economy's slow as things are slowing down. And I've seen recessions start simply because people have gone into, we're in a recession. And one of the things about this business is it is one of the most resilient businesses in the country. This is a time when people look and say, hey, can I get a little more out of my hoopty? Can Sally or Jack, whatever they call their vehicle's name, can it go a few more miles? It may be a little more work than we're accustomed to over the last couple of years. It's been like shooting fish in a barrel post-COVID. We've seen some meteoric shop growth, 25% year over year for some of our clients. And it's easy to get accustomed. But the key is stay the course. Have your plans. But the most important thing is this: your attitude and outlook. They are the rudder, and that's what's going to steer you on course or off course. Henry Ford put it this way: whether you think you can or whether you think you can't, you're right. If you think it's going to be a glorious 6 months, you're absolutely right. If you think it's going to be one heck of a challenge, you're right, it will be. You will frame your world with your words and your attitude and how you think.
Very true. It starts with you. Mm-hmm. And it starts with the people around you. Mm-hmm. You got to have people on your team that believe. And what that means is when we're talking about looking 6 months out, that's not just you as an individual. That means that's got to be part of the team is involved, and the team understands what we're strategizing for and planning for and preparing for, because they will be part of that. And if they don't know, and if it hasn't been shared, then they can't be part of it. And most of the people that are working for you want to be part of something. Make sure that they have the opportunity to participate.
Well, if a shop owner thinks about it, they are the leader in their shop, and they are the cheerleader. Most shop owners who come from the bays, we're not used to talking to a car. It doesn't talk back. Employees tend to, and some employees can tend to rub us the right way. Some could rub us the wrong way. And what do? We sometimes don't communicate. But it takes a 5-minute toolbox meeting. It takes dropping something positive and saying, hey guys, it's going to be great days ahead. Or the thank yous, the gold stars, the attaboys, those things add up. And this is where, get your pom-poms out, encourage and cheer, but communicate. The biggest thing is communicate. And it's fascinating when a client comes on, you ask the question, even clients who've been with us for a while, it's like, well, how's your team meetings going? And it's like crickets sometimes. And especially the new guys, it's like, just go out there and talk about something positive. Grab a couple of reviews off your website, and hey, you want to hear what Mr. Smith or Mr. Jones said about the work that was done at the shop, and get them accustomed to saying something positive. And you can tell I love positive. There's we're well able to take on anything in front of us as an industry.
Mhm.
Really smart cookies here. And Bill, you nailed it. Your team wants. I'll put it this way: your team wants to be led.
Yeah.
They want you to bring them along. That's why they come to work for you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Brian,
it's
I
like
want to
you
bring you in on
yeah.
this in a moment, but Brian, I got to ask an important question.
Mhm.
You're from Texas, right?
Yes. Mhm.
Do you know a piano tuner?
No, I don't. Actually, I do, as a matter of fact. I know a fellow that does that. Yeah,
Yeah,
Alan.
see, because Bill and Vic, they probably will need a piano tuner after it gets like 100 degrees out there. You know what'll happen to the strings? They'll get a little too hot, and when they sit down and do concerto, it won't sound right. So thank you. Make sure you send them an email later on that piano tuning thing. Thanks.
Yep, absolutely. It's crazy that I actually know one.
I'm trying to figure out how we ended up in the same place and we're 4.5 hours apart.
Well, you're close. It's the Texas, big state. Everybody's
It's
yeah,
a big
I know.
state.
We're all from hey, we're all from Texas, other than you right now.
That's right.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we'd even make you an honorary Texan
You
for an
oh
hour or two.
oh thank you.
We do
S-
accept
s-
Yankees. They
I'll
accepted
give you.
me.
They let me in. I'm not a
Yeah.
Texan. They let me in. Vic is not a Texan.
I am now.
Brian, were you born and raised here?
Was raised here. I was born in Missouri. So
Oh, boy.
Springfield, Missouri. So,
Oh,
but
wow.
as a kid, my mother moved here with my sister. So I've been here a lot of years. Little stint in Atlanta, but then back home. So yeah.
You know, Brian, since I've got a stat here, I've got to find it. We've lost 39,000 bays between 2019 and 2021. I still think that number is pretty darn close. So the productivity in our bays, in order to keep up with it, had to go way up. And again, we're talking about that post-COVID surge.
Mhm.
But now you add all the economy issues, what's going on in this crazy world of ours. People, I believe, are still a little hesitant. No one really knows how it's all going to shake out. Do you
Mhm.
think people are voting with their with common sense, with their feelings on getting repairs?
I think people are getting a little bit, somewhat maybe clutching the purse a little bit more, a little bit concerned with some of the uncertainty that's out there. But it's like Vic said earlier, and Bill, you got to have a plan in place. I think if you're saying, okay, I'm looking at the next 6 months. Well, what's the difference between I want to have a great next 6 months, right? I want to have my best 6 months ever. Well, what's the difference between a wish and a goal, right? So you go, okay, well, let's figure that out. Let's have a plan in place. Let's write it down. We can track it. It can be measured, right? And without that, it's just a wish. You really gotta, and I mean down all the way down to your budget, right? Your budget is written to match this goal. And if you do those things, and it's right, like Vic said, your mindset is huge. Makes me think of the book Think and Grow Rich. That's a huge part of it. Bringing in the team, getting everybody's buy-in, and going, hey, because you do the same thing, you're not going to get any different results, right? It's going to be the same. So how can we improve? What are we going to do to move the number, right? And then you focus on it and you make it a goal and you measure that deal, right? So that's the secret recipe, in my opinion. You really have to be focused in on a goal that you can measure and go, all right, we're 1 week into this. How are we doing? Well, we need to turn it up over here a little bit, or we need to focus more on this. Um, you know, what's it going to take to drive out these ambitions that we have?
If I go back to what Vic was talking about with the meetings and communications, and at least for me, in my experiences, it's really hard to get a shop owner to start having those meetings. And what happens, unfortunately, is that there are people that are working for them don't get regular communication, with the exception of when something went wrong or something wasn't right, then they heard about it. But they never got to, like Vic was saying, getting the attaboys or the thank you or we've got to get better at that. And shop owners need to realize that the only thing that makes you good at having meetings is having meetings.
Mm-hmm.
Right. You just got to start. You just got to make a commitment to, we're going to have regular meetings, huddle in the morning with our team. We're going to have a weekly meeting with the whole team. We're going to have a weekly meeting with our sales team. We're going to have a weekly meeting with the production team. And all of a sudden, when these things start to happen and that communication evolves, people are like, wow, it's like I started working in a different place. What happened? What was, and the people are all the same, but they just felt like they're part of something now because they're included and information is shared with them. And it's not just, well, the only time I ever hear anything is when things are bad or things aren't going well, or I screwed something up. That I hear about, but I never hear about any of the other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And, we've got to get to that point where those become part of our meetings.
Vic, I want to stop, and I got something so big on my mind. You said goals, 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 goals. I'd love to know, as an expert and a coach in the industry, how hard it is to get your clients to get into the goal setting mood and then get a win or two and then realize what uplift it can mean for the business. And when I was thinking about that, the meeting idea is a small and short, little reachable goal, which is, I think, a great way to break into doing goals. But what do you tell your people? Listen, I've got a great goal. Here's what we want to do or be or generate. Is it a sell or a tell? And I know the answer, but I think that's a critical next move. Is
Sure.
how do you get the goal established?
Well, what you do, so it's usually going to start off with a high level goal, right? And then you start to break it down and you realize that in order to hit this higher level goal, there's going to be smaller baby goals along the way, right? And those are those wins you're talking about that we can accomplish. It's like, well, boy, in order to be able to do these numbers I want to do, I'm going to need to add a technician. So now adding a technician becomes a goal, right? So you can accomplish the small goals in order to obtain that larger goal. And I get pretty good buy-in. I think it's a lot more, my clients can take it better when they realize, okay, there's baby steps to get to where I'm trying to go. And we can accomplish them one at a time. It's important to measure and track it, and that's what we do on our meetings. We'll go, okay, well, where are we at with this goal? And what do we need to do to accomplish it? And so as we hit some of the smaller goals, eventually we're going to hit that larger goal, but it's a lot of measuring that has to take place, in order to achieve that. So you can adjust. You don't wait till the 6 months are gone and go like, oh boy, well, it didn't happen, right? You got to put all the little bitty plans in place to help you to hit that big goal.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what makes it to where a shop owner will sign up and go, hey, you know what? Let's do this. Let's make this happen. And together we kind of formulate, what those steps needs to look like to get there.
A lot of times, when you're trying to get people to know what do we have? What's our history? Okay. Because from the history, then we can sit down and look at it and we can say, are you satisfied with that? Well, we already know the answer. They're probably not with a coach or considering working with a coach if they were satisfied where they are in life and where they are in their business, right? So you already know the answer to that, but you've got to ask the question about, so look at all this, look at everything that we know about this business. Are you satisfied with that? And when they admit that, no, I'm not satisfied, then it's real easy to show them, well, here's what we need to do to get to where you'll be satisfied. And you need to understand, what is it that they're after? Are they after more money? Are they after time away? Are they after, the opportunity to sell the business in 3 years or 5 years or, whatever. Everybody's after something different. So
right.
we really got to understand that, because then we can create the goals and show them the path to getting there. But I like to use, this is where we're at. Are we satisfied with that? No, I'm
That's
not.
right.
Well, let's work on what we're going to do, what changes we need to make to get you where you want to be.
But I like to look at it like they're building a championship team. If you think of any type of championship team, whether it be Formula One or NFL, it's not one at the start. It's not one at the finish. It's one lap over lap. It's one first down over first down. It might be 4th and 1. That could be Friday at the end of the month that we want to hit our goal. But it's small incremental moves down the field, round the track. The only way you're going to know how you're doing is to measure it. If you look at Formula One, what's the typical Formula One pit stop is, a good pit stop will be done under just a touch under 2 seconds. The average lap time, if you're down by, a tenth of a second, you're ahead by a tenth of a second, you're going to win that race. The same thing with first downs. Of course, Carm, you and I, fourth and 1.
Stop it.
Well, but I think you bring up a really good point. This whole thing about it takes more than just one.
Mhm.
And, so last week we're in Kansas City. So we're at Vision in Kansas City. And of course, you're in the home of the Kansas City Chiefs. And in one of my classes, I used exactly that. And I said, let's think about this. Do you think that Andy Reid ever looks at Patrick Mahomes and says, just grab 10 guys and go out there and do the best you can?
Mhm.
He would never do that, because
Mhm.
they have a plan. They have a series of plays they're going to run for a desired outcome. It's the same thing in business. You have to have the people in the right places. You have to develop the plays, which is a plan. You don't just say, well, take 10 guys and go out there and do the best you can. But unfortunately, that's how a lot of businesses function. They just accept the best they get without having a plan.
And you
Well,
got to, sorry, I was going to add to that. I mean, you got to dissect your business, just like Vic was saying, whether it's a Formula One racing or an NFL team, you got to dissect your business the same way. And you got to go, okay, how can I get a little bit better on our delivering the customer back their car upon completion? How can I focus on this area of the business and make it better? How can we get better at how we answer the phones, right? Capture, more cars, and then you get to train on it, right? You can measure those things and you go, yep, hey, we're getting better. We're getting more new customers. You just really got to break it down, and you involve your team. And then that's how you get buy-in, right? That's how you get, and that takes those meetings, right? And it's good because now you're celebrating some wins, and you go, hey, great job, everybody. Hey, we've improved in this area of our business, and now we're seeing the overall result of that. It's not there's no magic bullet. It's all those little things put together.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, exactly.
Well, it's talent, communication, measuring, practice. It's all those. You're
Planning.
right. Was it planning? Yeah.
Yeah.
The communication part, we look at it from a coaching standpoint. The good teams out there have a good coach. They have a
Oh,
good mentality, good attitudes. It's
They have a good expert like you guys, but they also have a leader who's a coach.
well, and that's what I was talking
Absolutely.
about. Good
That's what
coach.
you
I mean,
mean.
that
That's
that
what you mean,
coaching
right.
that coaching mentality is part of. It's ingrained in their organization.
Hmm.
And it just like you look at the shop owner, he's like the head coach,
Mm-hmm.
and his leaders inside there are like his coordinators and position coaches. He has to train them and give and also share his vision. That's another component of it. What's the vision?
Mhm.
Right.
And are the people fully bought in?
Culture winning.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, that's great.
But I think somebody mentioned something earlier about it comes down to making sure the experience is exceptional, having that having the customer have a great experience, right? That's
Mhm.
what's going to bring them back. And everything that we're doing as we look towards the next 6 months should be geared towards that goal. How do we make sure that the customer has a great experience? And I think if we think about, like Brian used a term earlier, like clutching the purses a little bit, right? So people are, I believe that, there will be some challenges in the coming months in terms of how people decide to spend their money. And yeah, all these things that'll factor into it, like interest rates and new car prices and all those things. But at the end of the day, the shop and the frontline people have to start thinking specifically about, what do I do to influence people to bring the vehicle here?
Yeah.
What puts me at the top of the list?
Yeah. Let me tag on that, and it's some things that I've said on shows before. In fact, I actually shared it in my mastermind at Vision this particular year, just a week ago. I get up and I say, listen, tell your team we need to hire a CXO, a new position in the company, a CXO. And then I need you to pause, look everyone in the eye in a silent moment and say, but we really can't. But I need each and every one of you to take on this new position. And that's the chief or the client experience officer.
Right.
And that is an opportunity to lay upon the team in this big blanket, if you will, of culture and vision and say, so I want from each one here, what's one thing you guys, you ladies, from your perspective, because I know you have it, and I know you've seen it, you've seen us do good, you've seen us stumble. What's one thing we could do better that no one is either doing? Some experience you've had some other place where you've been floored, beaten over the head by saying, my God almighty, I've never had this level of service. I've never been able to see this kind of care coming at me. And you'd probably be very, very surprised what your people are going to tell you. But you just don't do this as an exercise. You do this because it's got to become part of the company. Maybe you've got a 3-star review you want to chat about. What could we have done better? And for all of you coaches, it goes from the quality control person to the dispatcher to the workflow to the, if you will, nurses at the front counter and the doctors in the back. Ooh, another medical reference. and how this whole thing comes together to make that vehicle continue to have life for a long period of time. And I'm telling you, you guys have nailed it about the customer experience. I think it's going to separate the good and the bad shops in the future. We need new clients, right? We need to bring them in. They just can't have a normal kind of experience.
Well, the question
That's
is,
right.
why should they choose us? Where when I'm talking to prospective coaching clients that we would bring on, I said, us coaches, we all do the same thing. Brian and Bill, we all do that. We all coach the same thing, but our personality makeup is what makes us different.
Mhm.
And somebody's going to like vanilla, somebody's going to like chocolate, somebody's
Right.
going to like a hot fudge sundae. And what I encourage shop owners to do is, what do you do best? What are the things that make you you? Don't try and be the shop down the street. Don't try and replicate their USPs. One of our USPs came from, my mom being a single mom. And it was, auto repair should be no more difficult than going to the grocery store and buying a gallon of milk and a dozen eggs. And that's what we hung our hat on. And that's how we got noticed. We became that shop of choice. And I think the experience comes down to this: is what will they remember you for when they walk out the door? A
Mm.
fantastic repair done under budget, on time, can be spoiled by something as simple as a handprint on a window. What happens to the experience? It goes through the floor. It's, are you excelling above everybody else? It doesn't take much to do that. It doesn't take much of an investment to do that either.
Well, and to that point, you need to know how the experience is at your store compared to the experience at your competitors.
Mhm.
So this is really interesting because we just came off of doing this project for a client, because this client wanted to know what the experience was like if you called their competitor. So we did that. We called the client store and we called 6 of their competitors. Okay. And we let them pick the competitors. It's their marketplace. They know who they believe they compete with. So this was interesting. This was calls with the same vehicle, with the same problem, to 7 shops. And of the calls to 7 shops, one, even though there were multiple attempts to call that shop, they never answered the phone. It just goes to voicemail. So there is nobody there to answer the phone. That may be a problem. Okay. Now, here's the thing. Out of the 6 shops that didn't answer the call, there was nothing distinctly different about any of them. They all gave a price over the phone, with the exception of one. One would not give a price over the phone. And they talked about things that would not make any sense to someone like our mothers. So they talked about a pressure test. I don't know why you would tell a customer that you need to do a pressure test, because they don't understand what that is or why it needs to be done. So this car it had just made a long distance trip across half of the country. It had a brake noise, an empty coolant reservoir, and needed an oil change. 5 of the 6 stores gave them a price for brakes without ever looking at the vehicle.
Mm.
All 6 of the stores told the customer during the call what their labor rate was.
Wow.
Mm.
Only one would look at the car immediately. Everybody else had an appointment that was at least 2 days out or into the following week.
Mm.
And nobody asked any qualifying questions. Not one person said, when did it start? When did the brakes start making noise? How long have they been making noise? Nobody asked about the coolant. Are you seeing coolant under the vehicle when you park? Have you been having to add coolant? Nobody asked any qualifying questions. And only one, and unfortunately this was the dealer person said, we should look at that immediately. I don't want you to continue driving if you're low on coolant.
Mhm.
Everybody else was like, it's okay to I'll wait 2 days or 3 days or 4 days to look at it. You just keep driving around with a coolant leak. So here's the thing. Number one, when you start doing these kinds of comparisons of shops, we're not that different. Number two, it won't be that hard to be better than the other guy once you understand what's going on out there. It will not be hard.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
Have to exceed the expectations.
Yeah.
You know. And
so here's the thing: when you stop and think about that, with all these people they talk to, they call all these different shops. What was the comparison? Price. That guy's price was different than that guy's price. That guy's price. There was nothing else that made that guy a better choice than the other guy or gal. I'm not making it a gender thing, but right. And that's what we need to be focused on. And if you're going to do anything in the next 6 months, I'd tell you that's what you better be working on. In the next 6 months, you better figure out how you're going to be a better choice than all your competitors, that when people make that phone call, when they're deciding to pick up the phone and call, that they have such an experience in that phone call, they wouldn't want to go anywhere else.
Yeah.
It seems like we're all assuming as business owners that we're performing to the top of all of our expectations. And I love the point. I've been involved in just recently. It was last summer, where in a group, the call was made in front of the owner with 25 other peers, 2 different service advisors, 2 different calls, same shop. They failed miserably, and I know this guy really well, and he was so embarrassed. This isn't how they do it at their counter. And he was trying to come up with the situations that may have made these people be short on the phone. It was a check engine light. He says, come in, and I got next appointment is in 2 weeks. So it's all of these little kind of things that we take for granted, that our counter is working at its max. And Bill, should an owner just go and sit down with a friend one afternoon and say, hey, call my store, I want to hear, I want to listen?
Absolutely.
Yeah, see?
Absolutely.
I don't think you need to go out and do something so formal. Just go out and wow.
Yeah.
It's mind-blowing to think that the service level that's so necessary starts with either the web presence, that connection, that, if you will, appointment through the internet, or that phone call. Critical. Make or break.
Huge.
Here's another thing in our businesses in this industry is we put a lot of emphasis on finding technicians that go to training, have been to training, are well trained, are qualified to do the type of work we want to have in our shop, right? How come that never applies to the front counter? How come that doesn't apply to our people that are on the phones? And I mean, it's like sending people to sales training or service advisor training is always like secondary, and it ought to be at the top of the list.
Should be.
And I'm not
Primary.
saying it doesn't happen. It does happen. I will say it doesn't happen enough.
Yeah. And especially if the supervisor or owner doesn't go to that training, that educational seminar, and I've said this just recently. And so you send your people and they come back and they start doing some really cool, neat things. And you look and says, we don't do that stuff here.
Right.
You got to stop that. So the individual wasted their money, but that service advisor or customer service representative is all charged up is just beat down again. And you're going to go back to the same old thing. Why'd you send that individual to continuing education if you're not going to let it happen?
Right. Well, when you look at things like that, you have to think about this. There's how you think it is. There's how it really is, and how it should be.
Yeah. Perfect.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's really hard to hold your folks accountable if you don't know what kind of training that they're getting, whether they're doing it the way they should be or not. So I've seen that happen with service advisor training before, and exactly like it was described. And then the individual advisor is disappointed because there's no recognition for, hey, you're doing a great job. And those incoming phone calls, like you were saying, like there's only really two ways we can grow our sales, right? It's improving our car count or making the car count more.
Right.
And so those phone calls are mission critical.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to give yourself more opportunity. So a big focus on that. And just like that analogy to professional sports, those guys are watching game film. They're watching the opponent coming up. They're watching themselves previously because they want to measure and they want to improve. It's not to beat anybody up. To say, hey, this is a great job. Let's continue on this pathway. Let's improve. And now you just created a subject matter for a meeting, right? You got your friends calling the shop. Hey, we're going to listen to some phone calls here. That's our game film review.
Yeah.
Hey, let me go left here on this highway that we're talking about, and let's talk about the economy again and keeping our vehicles and the costs of new, and that EV lure that's kind of out there, and to think that the people that are at our counters, are they asking the right questions, be it FaceTime or on the phone, about how long are you going to keep your car? Have you do you have a decision here? You've got a 10-year-old car. We can make that thing last a long time. But what are your plans? And this way, you're going to find out if they're in a budget, if they're looking to keep, I just priced cars. My God, I can't believe how expensive they are. And that individual who's telling you this is giving you a license to fix and have a long-term relationship with them if you're asking the right questions. And I don't think do you have any plans to buy something new, or is this thing going to hang around and continue to benefit your transportation needs for the next 2 or 3 years? Because that's going to help us make this car last for you. And I think it is, again, if you want productivity, make every car count, and we have a little bit of a slowdown going on, then the brilliance and the genius of building better relationships. Yeah, we're going to spend money on marketing and bring people in. But when we bring them in, Our goal is to make them clients, not
Mhm.
customers.
Mhm.
That's right.
Well, go back to that, the measuring of one and done clients. The national average, now I'll go across all our client base, is 51% one and done. They come
Wow.
one time and they leave.
Wow.
And that one question that you asked, it's a relationship builder. People are coming for oil changes. Like go for the cheapest thing in town. Are you a cheap oil change shop? That becomes a whole nother elements of discussion. But asking the question about what are your plans, and that builds the second, the third, the fourth visit. And that's where you want to get them to, is 4 visits, because it's the we like to call the oil change the sniff test. It's you want to go out on a date, and the second visit is go out for coffee, and then dinner and a movie, and then by the time you get to the fourth one, you're walking down the aisle.
Bring that car in. Let's do an MRI on it.
No, but going back to Carm's point, especially with this budget thing, and if there's going to be a bit of a financial crunch for people, I think it becomes critical that you have that conversation about what is your budget for auto repair.
Mhm.
Let's make sure that we focus on the most important things that need to be done that will fit into your budget, instead of just giving you sticker shock with you need all these things and they feel like I can't afford to do anything, so nothing gets done. I think that's a really important piece of the conversation that needs to happen.
Yeah.
That's right. Absolutely.
Well, in letting them be in charge, it's okay to come back with $5,000 worth of items the vehicle needs, but allowing them to make the buying decision that's right for them. Some
Right.
people may want to they may want to do half of it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Some people, someone may want to trade their vehicle off. As long as we allow our clients to be in control, it's a lot easier to do the inspection, and that's qualifying them on the front side too. Is what are your plans?
Mhm.
I want to be cognizant of your budget, to your point, Bill. Can you imagine the client at the other end of the phone saying, well, no one's else cared like that before?
Mhm.
Wow.
Right.
Yeah.
You want to
right.
make sure that you provide people enough information that they can make a good decision.
Mhm.
And with no information or bad information, they make bad decisions.
And getting technical doesn't help.
Oh, that's the worst.
I know.
That's the worst.
Yeah.
Right.
It all has to come down to what is in it for them, and how is this going to benefit them?
Yeah.
Not the technical element of it.
So I see you're going to Bill's shop. Yeah. What's going on? Well, they say they're going to do a pressure thing. I don't know what that means. Right,
Mhm.
Bill? To your
I
point
don't know,
about
but it's expensive because that one place wanted to charge me $148 to do that pressure thing. So it must be, but I still don't know what it is.
yeah.
And I'm not sure why I need it.
Do we feel on our counters that we have to oversell and we have to, sound technical? I mean, our doctors don't do that to us. They just say, listen, we're going to send you to a specialist. We'll figure it out then. Specialists don't tell us a lot. They just don't until they get everything back. And then they lay it up on you in the nicest of ways. That's the estimate, right, of what we need to do to keep you walking upright. And then you decide what you want to do, because you're still in control, and that specialist is guiding you. When I heard Marcus Lemonis basically at the Vision keynote the first day,
Mhm.
when he described nurses as our service advisors, and our technicians in the back as doctors or specialists,
Mhm.
I was going to get up and kiss him, about my language shift, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's, all of these things are, when we look at this, all the steps between the time the customer, that initial phone call to maybe a follow-up phone call, all those steps along the way and how we impact the customer, each of those can really be dissected and trained upon, to have a great introduction or a great meet and greet, asking those key questions of the customer. How long have you owned the vehicle? Do you have a mileage goal? These are important things to know. I like to know if it's leased, right? I'm turning it in next month, right?
Right.
So, and it's all about, somebody said it earlier, it's about building relationships. It is what it is. And if you do come out somebody with a $5,000 needs on their vehicle, then prioritize it for them.
Yeah.
And you're having that conversation with your client, what makes sense to get addressed immediately, and if something can wait, we can schedule it out, right? So yeah, absolutely important.
Well, I want to plug Toastmasters, because this is the key. Yeah, they were talking about this. Communication skills are vital. Knowing how to ask the right questions, listening, processing what they're saying, and then formulating a plan on how to present. Toastmasters will help even the most scared person talking to your as an advisor talking to a client, will help you get from this level to this level to this level to this level. It's you go from becoming a rookie communicator to becoming a master communicator through process. And communication skills are vital in the shop. We hit that early on. The owner needs to know how to communicate with his team. The owner typically will ignore the 99% of what's right in the shop and focus on the 1% that's wrong, which is why we hear the gripes all the time. The advisor needs to know how to set up his communication with the client. He needs to be in the right environment. He needs to present it based upon their needs, not the shop's needs. Because we are ultimately here to serve the motoring public, to ensure that they can get the most out of their vehicle in the way that they want it done for as long as they want. And, I told you Toastmasters is what turned my communication skills and set it this direction. It's been 20 years since I've been in Toastmasters, and I highly recommend anybody getting involved with the Remarkable Results Toastmasters group. It will change your life.
Yeah. Thanks for that. Remarkableresults.biz/Toastmasters. Everything is there. You can join us as a guest anytime. I think we have somewhere like about 30 people. Maybe we get 15 to 19 to show up the first and third Thursday, 2 p.m. I think it is, Bill, or is it 3? But
I think it's the first and third.
Yeah, it's the first and third Thursday, and it's during the day. I got to tell you, Craig Greg O'Neill did a class on communication, and what he did in the second half of the class, he came up with a mock Toastmasters. And he picked people who raised their hand to do 5 separate speeches, and then they voted on those speeches, and then I offered them to be in the studio the next day and record an episode with the 2 winners. And we did that, and it's so cool. But he asked, and Tracy was there, and Tracy's our current president. My daughter Tracy, she became the presiding president, and they asked me to do the educational minute, and I did. And I'm sitting here, I was voluntold to do this, and so I'm thinking, oh my God, I got 1 minute. What do I say? So I got up in front of this group. It was a big class, probably 80, and I said, "Let me tell you a story about 10 years ago." And it was 10 years ago that I started the podcast. It's my 10th anniversary, right? So I told that little mini story, and not a lot of people heard how I evolved and came up with the name Remarkable Results. I told them that story, and it was a lot of fun. And these people were so embraced. And there was an on-air counter, there was a timer, everything that we would normally do in Toastmasters. I think brought some structure and rigidity to the importance of knowing when and how and who to communicate with and to. So thanks for bringing that up.
I want to take on to that, because certainly the Toastmasters thing is a great opportunity for people that have to speak to improve that skill. But when we're talking about communication, please don't forget that there's oral and there's written, and your written says a lot about whether I want to do business with you or not as well. So don't forget, when we're creating estimates and invoices and explanations for,
that's right,
our DVIs and everything else, that written communication is just as critical.
Yeah.
So let me throw a great idea you need to bring to your clients and anyone who's listening here. In our local independent group, a month and a half ago, everyone was asked to bring in 3 or 4 of their final repair orders. And they broke into groups, and and everyone gave. So each mini group had about 5 or 6 repair orders from different shops, and they're looking at them and looking at them. And Tracy, having been from the outside world, she's looking at these and she's asking a million questions. She's an outsider. She's not close.
Mhm.
What's these 3 letters mean? And and she came up with about 10, oh my God, common sense, can't believe we did that moments. And if we would stop and ask, give the invoice to the client, give them a gift card, if they would sit in the waiting room in the front with you and go over, I'd love you to go over word by word, letter by letter, what we just gave you that you just paid for, what makes sense, what doesn't. I think it's a brilliant move to get an outsider to critique your repair order, Bill, to your point.
So if
I love
you've
that.
never heard me say this before, when I had my shop, we had a thing called the mother test. My mother was an executive secretary. She knew nothing about cars. She didn't even like the fact that her son worked on cars. But what my mother did know is she did know grammar, punctuation, spelling. So the mother test was when we created canned jobs went to my mother. If my mother said, this is beautiful, I know what you're doing and why you're doing it, it went into the library. If my mother said, this doesn't make any sense, I don't know what you're doing, it went to the trash, and my people had to start over. That was the mother test.
Mhm.
Love it.
Find
Nice.
somebody who doesn't know anything about cars that you can bounce that stuff off of.
Yeah.
If they understand it, if it makes sense to them, like, I'd be willing to pay you money to have you do this, it's going to work. If they go, I'm confused, it didn't make sense, I didn't understand that, and that's that whole, my God, if we could do anything in this industry, quit using acronyms. The only people they make sense to is us.
Yeah.
They
That's
don't make
right.
sense to anybody else in the world. They don't know ABS, TPMS, PCM. Stop those
R&R.
people.
Yeah.
R&R.
R&R. Yeah.
If I pay you that much money, you're going to rest and relax. Yeah, that's pretty much what we're asking for.
Well, it got tear down and wrecker. Don't forget those 2.
Well, in this document that I wrote, this declaration, this language shift, I cover a lot of those acronyms and or some of the words that we use, and to get them to be a little bit more, if you will, sophisticated and clearer to the outside public looking in. Because right now we're in this acronym world and unprofessional language style. People look at us from the outside and they see unprofessionalism. Not in every shop. But my goal and our goal is your goal as coaches, we need to lift the entire next segment of the industry that's struggling, that needs, I believe there's a lot of people out there that really want to be better and do good and make more money for all the time, all the years they've spent, and they can't quite say they have enough to show for it. That's why we do what we do. All of us do what we do. That's why we do this
Exactly
monthly
right.
call. And that's why I've been podcasting for 10 years and out there speaking and being with our people. So thanks so much for being here. Our March 2025 from the Coalition of Automotive Management Professionals, the automotiveprofessionals.org website. Bill Haas from AIM Ignite Management at autoignitemanagement.com. Vic Tarasic is here from Shop Owner Coach at shopownercoach.com. And Brian Gillis, Chief UNet Results Strategist and soon to be new shop owner at unetresults.com. Thanks, Bill, Brian, Vic.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Take care, guys.